Compartment syndromes. This is from the Orthopedic Trauma Association Core Curriculum Resident Lecture Series, version 3, by Drs. Lee and Arabi. I'm Saqib Rehman. I'm going to be narrating the slides. So this lecture is going to cover multiple aspects of compartment syndrome, focus on exactly what it is, pathophysiology, diagnosis, and treatment. So when you have a compartment syndrome, essentially this is the phenomenon that's going on. You have this increase in hydrostatic pressure in a closed space bounded by fascia and bone, and you end up getting decreased perfusion of muscle and nerves, right? So you end up with this raised pressure in a closed space, which can eventually cause irreversible damage to everything that's in that space. Okay, so you get compartment syndrome because of these unforgiving compartments. Now, the compartment syndrome and sequelae in the upper extremities is often called a Volkmann contracture, right? So this is where the name comes from, Richard von Volkmann. Quote, "For many years, I've noted on occasion, following the use of bandages too tightly applied, the occurrence of paralysis and contraction of the limb," right? And ending up in disintegration of the muscles. So this is something that's been known for a while, and with compartment syndromes, with a compartment syndrome, you see the patient with symptoms resulting from this increased pressure in this limited space, and it compromises circulation and ultimately can compromise function. So, the pathophysiology, essentially you have decreased perfusion, right? So your perfusion to the tissues themselves is compromised when you have this sort of constriction, right? So normally you have this arterial to venous gradient, right? So you have a head of pressure, the systolic pressure is higher than the diastolic pressure, and you have this sort of very low pressure system in the venous system and high pressure in the arterial system, and in between are the capillaries, and it allows the blood to sort of flow from the flow in this direction, right? But the problem is, if you have this increase in pressure, so if you have a continuous increase in pressure in a compartment, and if this occurs until the low intramuscular arteriolar pressure is exceeded, and what will happen is blood can't enter the capillaries. So you sort of have this constricting effect, right, where the pressure outside the capillary, so if this is your capillary, the pressures acting outside the capillary overcome the pressures holding the capillary open, okay, and then blood cannot enter. So you have increased compartment pressure, right? This can lead to increased venous pressure by compression on the veins, which leads to decreased blood flow, decreased perfusion, and you sort of get this potentially vicious cycle. So this can lead to a decrease in peripheral vascular resistance, increased extraction of oxygen as sort of autoregulatory compensation, but eventually you can reach sort of a critical closing pressure, and then eventually your oxygen perfusion to the muscles, nerves, and contents of that compartment decrease, right? And then you end up with this ischemia. So unfortunately, the ischemia can be irreversible, and that's what makes this an emergency, right? So in 4 hours you can get reversible damage, 8 hours you get irreversible damage, and this is kind of where we sort of come up with this number. So I'm going to make sure we're all very clear on this. This is one of the few true surgical emergencies in orthopedics. Okay, you're kind of on the clock. Now with muscle ischemia, you will get tissue breakdown as well, right? You'll get myoglobinuria, and this can be measured with creatine kinase levels. This can eventually overload the kidneys, lead to renal failure. So you have to make sure in those patients you maintain a high urinary output to keep the kidneys from shutting down. And like I said, you can get this vicious cycle, right, where you have decreased perfusion, ischemia, increased capillary permeability, increased muscle swelling, and then you get this vicious cycle. You get tissue breakdown, and it leads to this perpetuating phenomenon. Right, and then this is what can essentially lead to the compartment syndrome. So increased pressure, increased venous pressure, decreased blood flow, decreased perfusion, and it's just sort of this cycle, right? And you go back to this. So nerve ischemia, the nerve tissues are very sensitive, so in 1 to 4 hours you can have some reversible damage, in about 8 hours you can start to get irreversible damage. So you get muscle tissue damage and nerve damage, and both can become irreversible after 8 hours of sustained compartment syndrome. Now, what causes it? Well, we kind of just talked about all these pressures, but like in a real patient, like what exactly is happening? What are you looking for? Well, one of the big things is hemorrhage, right? So if you have bleeding, I'm sorry, there's a typo there, bleeding into the compartment, it's going to take up extra space, right? If it keeps bleeding, it's going to take up more and more space. Things are going to get tighter, and this can be caused by a fracture, or you could just have badly traumatized soft tissues or increased fluids in the compartment, maybe in burns or post-ischemic swelling, right? We see this happen after revascularization of an ischemic limb. So those are all increased volume phenomenon. Well, you can also have decreased volume because of external pressure. So you put a cast on that's too tight, or dressings that are too tight, and you're essentially you're squeezing from the outside. And typically what we really see a lot of times when patients come in and then develop this overnight is sort of this hemorrhage into the compartment. So it's oftentimes from bleeding with a fracture and soft tissue swelling as well. But a lot of times this hematoma in there is going to cause this. So fractures, soft tissue injury, crush injury, right? Arterial injury. So we will see this in patients who have like a femoral artery injury, and then they get post-ischemic swelling, and then they get reperfused, and they get flooded with fluid, and now they get a reperfusion injury. Or a drug overdose, right? So that's sort of like a crush injury, but patients laying on their side. It's external pressure for an extraordinarily long period of time. And burns. So in this vicious cycle, one of the things that happens is you get muscle damage, necrosis of the muscle, release of additional edema, cells breaking down. It leads to more swelling and more muscle injury. With arterial injuries, again, as I mentioned, you could have a vascular injury such as shown here, and then with revascularization, see, oftentimes you'll maybe get called to the OR because vascular surgery has just reperfused a limb, and this happens more often in the upper extremities. Now they want you guys to come in and do a fasciotomy, right? Because they don't feel comfortable doing it, or for whatever reason, maybe there's some other reason you need to be there. So this is one of those things where there's a high risk of compartment syndrome post-revascularization. So I'm going to pause here after talking about pathophysiology, and we're going to pick up with the rest of this in the next portion of the lecture. Thanks.